Ford builds some amazing off-road trucks. Today we're going to talk about two of the most high-performing off-road trucks in the industry and the differences between them. We're going to talk about the Cosmetic, the Powertrain, and the suspension differences between the Raptor and the Tremor F-150. These are both F-150s built off the standard platform, but have many upgrades that make them drastically different. So let's get into the first thing. We're going to look at cosmetics. So right off at the front of the trucks, you'll notice a drastically different look. On our Tremor package, we have a shorter valance than the factory F-150. We have a yellow painted tow hook. We have the yellow on the grille, some accenting around the headlights, and a nice sporty look to the front of this Tremor. Now you move over to the Raptor. We have an extremely aggressive front grille. We have a very aggressive high-rise front bumper that gives you lots of ground clearance. We have a larger skid plate right up here on the front, and we have a much wider fender. The distance between the wheels outside to outside is going to be 7 inches larger on your F-150 Raptor than it is going to be on a Tremor. The Tremor package will come with a more aggressive looking hood that has a plastic hood louver on both sides. When you go over to the Raptor, depending on if you're getting the Raptor R or the regular Raptor, the top of the hood will look a little bit different, but the shape of the hood is drastically different. So we've got wider hood, we have a great big rise, the cowl up here looks quite a bit different. You have a plastic piece on the back side of the hood versus a metal hood all the way up to the cowl on the Tremor package F-150. You have a lot of additional lighting on the Raptor package, so your headlight distance is going to be the same, but the fender comes out 7 more inches on each side, so you get an additional marker light up here on the front. You have different fog light styles. You have a large plastic fender vent here. You do get a fender vent added on the Tremor F-150, but it's a little bit lower down like the standard package F-150. Now when we're looking at tires, the Raptor package will have the option of a 35-inch tire. You can upgrade to a 37 depending on which package you're going to. You also get detachable beadlock ring on here. You do not get that on the Tremor. On the Tremor, you will have a 275/75/18, which is going to be just a slightly larger tire than what you get from the factory. These will come on an 18-inch wheel, so you have a little bit more sidewall for going off-road. They both come with almost identical steps, so they're a version of the Ford Performance steps. The Tremor package shares the step with the F-150, the Super Duty, and the Expedition. When you go to the Raptor, it's a very similar step, but is slightly different. When we move back to the rear of the truck, same thing as the front. The rear fenders are going to be 7 inches wider outside to outside. Same thing with the rear tires. We do have an additional light back here on the fender for the Raptor. We also have some different lights up here on the cab than what you get on the Tremor. When we go to the rear bumpers, they both have a sporty styling with dual exhaust. They both have rear tow hooks. The main difference will be that the Raptor bumper is going to curve up about 3 inches tighter on this back corner, so if you are going off-road, you have a little bit less of a chance of catching this rear bumper. So you can see on the Raptor, the bumper comes all the way above the exhaust pipes. On the Tremor, it goes around. You also have a slightly narrower fit here off the back of the tailgate than you do on the Tremor package. The Raptors will also have a specific to the Raptor applique on the rear tailgate. So a lot of the styling you see from the Raptor, which was designed before the Tremor packages came out, has been used on the Tremor. So they put a sporty style seat inside. You have a Baja style cloth material in the center. All the stitching is done with the gold Tremor embroidered on the back of the seats. When you move over to the Raptor, you'll find that they have higher bolsters on the seats. So if you're cornering off-road, running the Baja, helps hold you in the seat better. You do get a suede insert on the seat, so only the exterior bolsters are lined in leather and right in the center. The upper portion of the seat will have vented suede in the centers and the top. The steering wheel on the Raptor is going to be quite a bit different. You will have paddle shifting available just like you do in a Mustang. Some additional buttons on the steering wheel, the drive modes, steering mode and suspension mode and exhaust mode. Carbon fiber on the steering wheel and door panels. So both of these trucks are built on the F-150 chassis. So they both share the F-150 frame, cab. A lot of the other components are completely separate. So the Raptor will only share the cab and the frame from the F-150s. Almost all the rest of the components outside of the interior are going to be upgraded specific to the Raptor. Tremor is going to share the cab, partial fender. Now your front fenders will be different than they are on a regular F-150 in the hood, but the rest of the truck, for the most part, besides the suspension, shares the same F-150 platform. Now let's talk about the powertrains. The Raptor and the Tremor both have V8 and V6 options. In the Tremor, you can get the 3.5 EcoBoost or the 5-liter V8. The 3.5 EcoBoost will be a 400 horsepower engine. If you go with a 3.5 EcoBoost on the Raptor, it will be a high-performance Raptor engine that is 450 horsepower. So you'll gain 50 horsepower by going to the Raptor. The Raptor also has a V8 option with the Raptor R that will give you 720 horsepower. Supercharged, which is what we are looking at right here. Transmissions will both be a 10-speed transmission. Now on the Raptor with the additional horsepower, they will have a slightly different transmission in them, but still a 10-speed. The Raptor will have additional drive modes programmed into the truck. So the Tremor will have some of your off-road drive modes modes, the Raptor will have a Baja mode that allows for a high performance driving mode specifically to Baja style terrain. The Raptor will have front and rear lockers. The Tremor package will only have a rear locker. The front will be a limited slip differential. So if you're driving a Tremor and you're driving a Raptor, there is a noticeable difference in the power increase in the Raptor, especially if you're going to the Raptor R with a supercharged V8. So what does that mean? The Raptor is a high performance off-road vehicle. The Tremor is an off-road capable vehicle, but your power plant is still shared with the regular F-150, so you have no additional horsepower or torque increases on the Tremor package. And now we will roll into suspension, which is my favorite part of this Raptor. Now, almost all of you guys that buy these Raptors don't use them the way they're meant to be used, and what I'm talking about is running the Baja, driving 100 miles an hour off-road and catching some air. Tremor package, this is a great truck if you want to go to the mountains and drive down 100 miles of dirt road, rough roads, use some four-wheel drive, but you're not trying to get off the ground, you're not trying to drive 100 miles an hour. If you need to haul the camper up into the mountains to do a trip, this is a perfect truck for you because you have the increased ground clearance, better tires, and some better four-wheel drive modes. Now, if you want to drive from Utah to Las Vegas on a dirt road and do it at 110 miles an hour, this is the truck that you want to take a look at. So the Tremor package is going to have an upgraded shock, upgraded skid plate package, but the Raptor is going to have a significantly improved suspension. So if you're driving on the road, this one is going to handle bumps on the road better than the Tremor package is. The only downside for this as a daily driver is having the larger tires. You will have a reduced fuel economy driving the Raptor over the Tremor. So the Raptor suspension is set up with a Fox shock, dual reservoir with electronically controlled chambers. So based on your terrain and the drive mode, you can change the stiffness of the shock with a button on the steering wheel. You can change the sensitivity on the steering, and you can also change the sound of the exhaust. So if you want the exhaust louder on this Raptor R, you can go through an exhaust mode and increase the sound of that exhaust. So on our Raptor, we have electronically controlled chambers inside the suspension so you can change the dampening based on how rough the roads are. You also have a significantly stronger, larger upper and lower control arm and a bigger strut on the Raptor over the Tremor package. When we get to the rear of the truck, the Tremor package shares the rear suspension of the rest of the F-150s, which is a leaf spring setup. So we have a simple leaf spring setup, a bump stop, and a simple off-road tuned shock. When you go over to the Raptor, the rear suspension is drastically different. We have a coil spring on the rear controlled with radius arms. So having the upper and lower radius arm on the rear suspension allows for that rear axle to have an extreme amount of torque going to it and prevent that axle from wrapping and causing loss of grip and chattering when running down the road. The coils on the rear allow the suspension to be progressive so that depending on how far up that suspension is going, it can have a different force and keep the tire on the dirt. So I've sold a lot of performance vehicles over the years, and almost all of them that I sell, they go straight to a garage, they get parked, washed and waxed, and they're never driven. Today we're going to show you exactly how this Raptor R is supposed to be driven. And if you're buying them and you're not driving them like this, you're missing out. People think I'm crazy because I might say, hey, we're gonna go jump this Raptor R, but that is what they are designed to do. I have gone through the Ford Raptor driving school, learned how to use all the drive modes on these and just put the pedal to the floor for hours. And those things get 50, 60,000 miles of Baja only driving, and they hold up great. So this will just be an entry-level teaser, but let's check out what this thing can do. So in summary, if you're trying to decide between the Tremor or the Raptor is gonna be a great truck for taking off-road. I'm talking running down dirt roads, doing some minor 4x4. If you're wanting to run the Baja 1000, the Raptor is gonna be your choice.